right, so let's get started. On the screen, you see the housekeeping. The number one item is the session is being recorded. If you have any issues, generally, if you're going through a browser, your F5 will reset things and make it all better. The presentations will be emailed to you early next week, along with a link to the video. Videos are also available on YouTube. If you have any questions throughout the session, you can ask them through the Q&A or through the chat. And let's see, what else? I'm here with Renee, who's been quiet so far. Hi, Renee.
Hi, everyone.
All right, so let's just jump in. Before we jump in, though, just a reminder, in October, we're having our Golden Summit, and that will be on Tuesday, October 14th. So I will be there, so if you can go, if there's anything you want to hear about, and this will be more for my focus people with language, if there's something that's not on the agenda that you want to hear about, let us know. And I think I have a link. Let me try to put it into the chat and let's see what happens. Yes, it worked. So the form link is a form where you can fill out and say, this is the type of information that you would like to learn about at Summit. All right. I don't want to disconnect. Close this one. And I'm going to start talking about Dialog Manager basics. Okay, good. Okay, so what is Dialog Manager? So Dialog Manager is part of the Focus code that is outside of the data retrieval. So you have table, you have match, all of that actually interacts with your data files. Dialog Manager is looking at more your environment. So what's happening before you go out and get your data. So it allows you to control the execution flow and logic of your application and procedures. So let's dig into that a little deeper. Dialog Manager commands, when you look at your code, they will always begin with a hyphen. So that's how you differentiate a table command or a define file. Something that's going to get, if it's not Dialog Manager, it gets put on a stack, and then it'll get run if you do a -run or if the procedure reaches the end of the file. So we're going to begin with a hyphen. So why the hyphen? Well, it's something that the program knows to look for and says, okay, if I see a line that begins with a hyphen, I know this is Dialog Manager, and I'm going to run this immediately. So it's not waiting for other things to happen. It's just going to happen. So if you're running a table request and you're doing a setting in your Dialog Manager, which we'll show you how to do that coming up, if you're setting a value based on something that happened in the procedure, well, you need to make sure you run the procedure that was stacked before you try to get the information from it. And I'll show you an example of that. The dash also gives distinction between the WebFOCUS commands. I was kind of mentioning this already. The table file, the define file, all of the table components, those that don't have a hyphen in front of it will get put on the stack, and then it will run when you have a -run or the procedure finishes. All right, so what can Dialog Manager do? You can control application flow. You can enable dynamic procedures, and we'll get into a little more depth on these. Handle logical conditioning, manage your variables, and then do some error handling and debugging. So for the control application flow, Dialog Manager lets you branch. So if I have part of a code that I want to run sometimes, but not all times, Dialog Manager gives me the capability of saying, if this condition is met, I want to skip the next lines of code and go to a different area. So that's all done through the Dialog Manager, and Dialog Manager has a label. So where you're going to in the go-to command would have a label identifying where it's going to. So here are some examples. If amper salary is greater than 50,000, then go to high salary. Dash run says run anything that's on the stack that didn't have a hyphen in front of it. Dash exit will terminate the procedure at that point. And then we have labels, dash label, my label. Dynamic procedures allow you to take one report and you can conditionize it so that, let's say the car file, you want to do a report only for England. Well, I can put a where condition that says where country equals England. Or I can make it a parameter and say where country equals amper country. And then depending on the value of amper country, I'm going to get a different report. So you can go crazy with all your parameters. You can parameterize your headings, your sort orders. You can just go crazy. But that's what this dynamic procedures is talking about. So here's some examples. We're going to set a variable. This is showing how to get values into the variables. So you can do a dash set, a dash prompt. You can do a dash read to get information from a file. And then there's dash read file, which will get information from, and that's not a misname. Well, I guess technically it is a misname. It should be mass name. And then we have default. So if I have a default value, I'll get prompted, but then you'll be able to change the value from the default value. Conditional logic lets you do if then else's. So if salary is greater than 50,000, then go to high salary, which we kind of saw before in the flow. Unconditional would be just a dash go to. Variable management. So again, this is we call it parameterizing. We have local, global, and system variables that you can use. So here I'm doing set var1 equals hello. And then I'm doing set var2 equals, if var1 equals hello, then world. So you can set conditions on your set. And then again, the dash default. And then lastly, for error handling and debugging, we've done sessions before on how to do troubleshooting. So the biggest thing here is it's kind of indirectly to do error handling and debugging because you're going to use things like go to skip. So I have a huge amount of code, and I'm trying to figure out where my error is. I'm not quite sure where it is. So you can then skip around code by doing a go to skip and putting a skip label somewhere. And then you can eliminate parts of code until you find where the error is happening. The dash exit, well, again, if I have a large procedure, I don't want to run the whole thing because I know the error is happening in the first couple table requests. Then I can put a dash exit at the top and then work my way down until I find where the where the error is. And then finally, dash type is used to see information. So I can do a dash type and put an amper variable, and then it will show me the value of that amper variable. The dash type will also let you put literals in there too, along with the amper variables. So in this example, I have table file car, sum D cost, R cost, by country, by car, by model, where country equals amper country. So this is showing you the parameterization. So depending on what country is, something will happen or something doesn't. Notice I have the dash run after the end because I want to run the table request because I want to see if I got results back. So here I have, if amper lines is greater than 0, go to done, which is at the end of the procedure. If amper lines equals to 0, then I'm going to create an HTML form, which is going to say there was no output. Okay, so this kind of highlights a lot of the different functionality that you can do in Dialog Manager. And what I'm going to do is, if I can get out of this. So here's the code I just ran, I just showed you, and let's go ahead and run it. So notice I had the amper country specified as an amper variable, but I didn't have a dash set or anything that was declaring it. So when you run this through WebFOCUS, WebFOCUS will go ahead and look for any unset set variables and then prompt you for them. So in this case, I'm going to put in England and we'll run it. And I get my report. And if I run it again and I put in USA, I see the HTML form that I generated through the HTML form begin and end. So are there any questions? Okay. We also have an evaluation. So when you leave the session, please make sure you fill those out. We usually get some responses, but it wasn't as good this last month. So we like to see them. We like to get your feedback. Especially we want to hear what kind of topics do you want to hear about. All right, let me stop sharing and I will hand over the baton.
Thank you, Walter. A great presentation with Dialogue Manager, love it. So today's presentation on my side, and hopefully everyone gets some great information out of it. It's come up a lot lately from a support perspective, customers inquiring about what we call our Analytics Anywhere now, but it's gone through some different naming conventions, right? Analytics Anywhere, In-Document Analytics, Active Reports. You may hear AHTML because that's the format in the code. And the idea behind it is really to empower end users, like with interactive reports and capabilities and analytics, right? You get to share insights within and outside of your organization. They could be online or offline, and offline is really great because then you could distribute them and they can manipulate, visualize these self-contained reports. Really, it allows users to explore content on demand without just having a self-service application. Really, you deliver it to the user, but we give you some further capabilities. But I kind of wanted to present at least an introduction today into the capabilities. One, enabling it within Designer, and two, just going over the features that are available within once you run an active report. What can you do there? What are the types of capabilities? And I don't think enough customers are aware of the capabilities that we have. So just give me a moment. Let me share my screen. And okay. And right now you should see the WebFOCUS Hub. Is that true, Walter, on your end? Looks good?
It does.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm in release 9.3.3. Our latest is 9.3.4. This is all applicable to that as well. And even earlier versions of WebFOCUS Designer. So I'm in the WebFOCUS Hub, and as you've probably already been exposed in prior sessions or any kind of training or from our education website, we can create a visualization by the plus in the hub and create visualizations. So I'm going to go in there first. And I'm going to pick up our typical WF Retail Lite. Mine is a flat file. It certainly could be in your environment as relational or any other file that you're dealing with. So I'm going to go into my retail demo and pick WF Retail Lite. And I could double click, or I could just select the synonym and select create visualization. And that brings me into design with WF Retail Lite. If you have questions about how to create the tutorials, you can go to the workspaces, and then there's plus data, and there's tutorials at the very end, and retail demo is an option there. Now, I'm in Designer, and I'm just going to select a few fields first. And actually, what I want to do too is I'm in a chart, but typically I would want to probably be for active as a standard report or a grid report. You could have it as a chart if you wanted to, but this would probably make the most sense. I could expand the content template picker, and I can pick the report section here, or I can also just scroll down, and at the very top we put the most common ones. That's the grid with the by displays displayed at every line, or I could pick a standard report if I want. So I'll pick standard report, and I'm going to select a few fields. Let's select product category, product subcategory, and model. I'm just double clicking them in. They'll go into the rows bucket, which is our sort field, our by fields in the internal language. And then let's pick some measures. And I'm going to pick, and you notice the sort fields are in blue, just as a note, dark blue. Let's pick revenue, quantity sold, gross profit, MSRP, and discount, and cost of goods. Okay, have a pretty straightforward request, nothing very complicated about it. You can hover over fields and see what the formats are, et cetera, and so forth. One of the things I want to do, though, is maybe I want to hide a few fields. Maybe there's some fields that I want to be part of the request, but I don't necessarily want them to be displayed. And so what I can do is I can right-click, and if I hide the fields, you notice it'll be a light color, particularly in this case because it's a measure, a summary bucket. It's in a lighter green. And I'll do the same, right-click hide for discount and right-click hide for cost of goods. So you can see the impact in preview. Live data, it's limited, so this is not all the data it's going against. It's just going against a subset of the data. And if I were to run this by default, it's an HTML output. And let that just run for a moment. You see we get plain HTML output, looks pretty straightforward, but there's really no interaction, right, capabilities. There's nothing interactive that the user can analyze and manipulate this data. It's just a standard report, which can be perfectly fine and quite often does meet business requirements. But obviously today is to go into a different subject, right, with our Analytics Anywhere active reports. And so I wanted to showcase. So now, okay, by default, it's HTML. And if you go to Format, the Format tab, so the Settings tab has, you know, the buckets for display, your static filters, your interactivity options, etc. But the Format tab is more of the styling. What you'll see here will change the options in this dropdown on the Format tab depending on whether it's a report or a chart, and also depending on what you have already as part of that particular visualization that you're creating. Like if I had column totals on this, I would see column totals as an option here. So the general is where your theme is. And I'm going to leave the theme as Designer 2018, but certainly could style things a little bit differently. And then for the general, I'm going to pick output settings, which you do see on reports. You won't see that option on chart types. And then if you notice, if you scroll down, and I'm going to scroll down here, you'll see HTML features. So depending on the output format that you have, you'll see the options available to you for that output format. So HTML5, it'll default to HTML. Certainly, if I select HTML for the paginated canvas, you still see it there. You just see the preview looks a little different because it's page-oriented, our paginated canvas. If I select PDF, you'll see PDF features for enabled accessibility. For PowerPoint, there aren't options there at this time. That could be expanded. XLSX or Excel, you can see there's a lot of different options available to you. And depending on if you have an earlier release, you might not see all of these, or it might be certain features are enabled, but not all of the capabilities. But you would see this at the 9.3 release level. And then let's just say I picked CSV. If you select CSV, you can create output with comma delimited headers, without headers, or tab delimited with or without headers. And then in 9.3, we added two other options. And again, these are the options you would see with a report. Is JSON output. And there's no real styling associated with that. That kind of makes perfect sense based on the output. And the same thing with XML. And you'll notice also I have selected runtime here. And I just like to always mention, just to be aware of it, if you want that option to be available and you want to select that where the user can then select the output format, then what you would want to do is go into the administration console. And while there isn't designer properties right now, that designer properties is really impacting the data, the preview data within your request and what's available. Info assist properties, actually the user selection here in the format tab, it allows for that option even in designer. So if you have it checked, that's why you see that in mine, because I have it checked and enabled. Okay, let's come back here and let's go back into the actual designer request. So really what I want is I want active. I want HTML format, which is, again, our Analytics Anywhere, active reports. in document analytics. And that's actually what the manual has, in document analytics, as the title on it. So right now you can see that the features that I have are default table, there's table of contents freeze, and then document analytics cache. Now, really the table of contents and freeze, we're going to be updating. This is really applicable to the older AR version 1, and for migration purposes, it's there. Table of contents doesn't apply to AR version 2. And freeze, the column titles are automatically frozen with our latest AR version 2, what you have in Designer for your active output. So for that reason, these settings really aren't applicable, but I just want to mention that just for reference. And again, we will be updating and enhancing this. And there's a lot more to come actually down the road in terms of features and capabilities that you'll be able to do directly within Designer rather than customizing them via a style sheet. So default table, if I run default table, we'll get our very first active report output. And now you can see that there's some interactivity here. You can start seeing, I could start sorting columns, and I'm going to go through all of these in detail. And then there's other options here too as well. So there's a lot of interactive capabilities. You can see paging that I can go through, and I can actually change the number right here and make it 2 to go to the second page instead of using the controls. But there's interactivity that you saw that's different than what we had with just our standard HTML format. Now I'm just going to close this out, but I wanted to showcase in Workspaces and FOCACHE that I don't have any files here right now. You do see test_ext. That's because I have DSML set up, and it's just noting the properties that are the features that have been enabled with it. So you'll see that in FOCACHE in the latest releases. Okay, so now if I do, and actually let me do one other thing. So I have default table and that's the default when you come in. I do want to go to outline on the sidebar, right-click content, view source code, and just to showcase what's actually in here, you can see table file, you could see the fields that are visible and then not visible, and then there's a sort field, and you can see the format that's created, and then these are just some of the settings there. Nothing complicated about it, but I want to showcase the difference. So I'm going to X out the source code, and now I'm going to select Document Analytics Cache. So why would you even have this option, right? So when you have the full table with active reports, with Analytics Anywhere, what you're saying is what we do is we create a document, and that document, everything that's done, all those capabilities are strictly offline. They're not going back to the reporting server. We're not doing anything. It's all done in the browser memory based on what's in that document, what we build. Versus active cache or document analytics cache. What that does, it says it only sends the first page of the report output to the browser, and subsequent pages are stored in the temporary cache in the WebFOCUS reporting server in FOCACHE. And for that reason, then what it allows is we document officially in documentation that we have a limit of 5,000 records or 100 pages. You probably can get more than that with a standalone offline document. But with document analytics cache, it allows, if you have large amounts of data, that it'll still be on the server. You have that temporary, the FOCACHE files there, and it'll serve you the first page, so it doesn't take so long to try to load. And the other part of it is, while it's still connected, because that's still connected to the server, then all calculation, sorting, and filtering are going to be performed on that reporting server. And actually, for exporting capabilities, you actually have PDF and you have true XLSS format support if you have active cache. And that's really something you want to utilize if you do have large amounts of data and you could still be in connected mode to the reporting server. So if I have this, what I want to show from a source code perspective is you'll see the web viewer is on. You'll see web view target is off, which means just put the report output browser in the same frame that this ran in. Otherwise, you can target a specific target. And cache lines is also available. And cache line specifies the number of rows from cache, which by default is 100. That's available, and we already have that implicit within Designer. So I'm going to exit out of this, and then I just want to run this. So that you'll see the output is the same. But the key difference here is that this is not truly offline at this point. It truly is still connected to the reporting server. And you can see that by these temporary files here that are within FOCUS. All right, and I'm not going to go into the details about these files. It's just enough to know and to understand the difference between having default capability, which is true offline capability with active reports, versus cached enabled, which is truly still connected to the server and via having files via the FOCUS, which is really truly a great capability. Again, if you have large amounts of data and you can still be connected to the server in this manner. So actually what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually delete these files. So we don't need them. I can close out this request. And then I'm going to come back here and go back to default table. And certainly if I go to the view source, you won't see those commands here any longer relating to WebViewer and the WebView target. And now if I run, it truly will be offline. So let me run that. And once it finishes running, I just want to showcase, if I come back here at FOCUS, you can see there's no files created here. So it truly is an offline request, right? Another thing to think about with FOCUS, when does it get cleared out? It is obviously, it's removed if the user logs out of their session, WebFOCUS session, or it reached an expiration limit. And so if I were to go here to server workspaces, again, this is more an administrative level, but doesn't hurt to mention it, and go to settings and workspace set and application settings, you'll see that there's a FOCUS max age, and by default it's 180 minutes. And you can, I'm hovering over the little question mark so that you can see that for your reference. I kind of just wanted to make note of that, and that's the default. It can be different, it can be adjusted based on your particular installation and everything, but I just wanted to make note of when FOCUS is cleaned up. Okay, so now we're back. Here is the designer request. I already ran it, and I'm running it in default table, so this is truly disconnected mode. I am not, for anything that I'm going to do now with this output, I am strictly running offline. I'm not hitting WebFOCUS at all in any way. Everything is being done within the browser. And we book this way. And this really does, I think, set us apart from a lot. It's kind of giving you what I like to think of as like Excel capabilities, but within a document that's really easy to manipulate. And you can easily distribute this on its own as an attachment through Reportcaster and everything. So that capability is there as well. So that gives you just an insight into Designer. And again, there's a lot more coming down the line in terms of the capabilities that we're going to enable with Designer, so that you'll have a lot more control about the features that are enabled. And I'll talk about that next time too, from a language style sheet perspective. But again, a lot of that will be enabled in Designer coming up in the future. So the rest of this presentation is really to go over what's available when you have an Analytics Anywhere document. I kind of already briefly mentioned some things, but I kind of want to go through the capabilities just so that you're aware of what a user has available to them. And there is a lot. So the very first thing that I want to do is just, if I click a cell, so I'm going to click the cell accessories. And when I click that, I have options: comment, highlight value, highlight row, unhighlight all, or filter cell. So if I were to click comment, I can actually type a comment here, and I could just say something like, this is a comment. I certainly could put a name or something, but I can just click add. Now it adds that comment, and when I close this out, you can already see that it has a little bubble there with the 3 ellipses, and if I hover over it, it tells me what the most recent comment is, and then I can click even view all to bring that back. Or I could just click that cell and go to comments and bring that back as well, and I could add more comments if I wanted to. And then that's something that could be saved and passed off potentially to another user for reference. What else can you do? If I'm in, and all of these are, even though you're seeing blank, it knows that it's the same value accessories. So I could say highlight value. And if I say highlight value, it'll highlight that value across the entire request, all the rows. right? And right now, because accessories is part of product category, which was a sort field, you can see all the rows highlighted there. Now I can also, if I just pick headphones and say highlight that value, then it'll narrow the scope of the highlight. Now certainly you have the option, I could say unhighlight all, and that would take it away. So let me just do highlight value again on headphones, so I'll have those highlighted. Now there's other options that are available too. Let's say camcorder held. If I click the held cell, maybe I say I want to highlight that row specifically. It'll highlight that row. And then maybe I want to pick another row and I'll highlight that row too. Now you'll notice if I hover over like professional, I still see the options the way I had them before. But if I hover over highlighted row, I also can unhighlight that row, or I can unhighlight all. If I pick unhighlight all, it unhighlights everything. And just bring back highlight value, and let me highlight this row and highlight this row again. Then if I just say unhighlight row, it just unhighlights that specific row. But again, if I select unhighlight all from either here or here, right? Or even from something that's not highlighted, it unhighlights everything. And let me just highlight this value, and let's highlight this row. One of the other options that's available, and I'm going to go through these lists. You'll notice I have this little ellipse up here. You have this where you can maximize the component. And this is relatively small. You know, the width of this report is not large based on the columns that I have. But this little ellipse has a lot of options, and I'm going to go through them. But one of them is save changes. If I select save changes, it's going to save a file, and I can open that up. And if I open up what that file is, and the name cannot be changed. I know there's been requests to change that. It is created the way it is, but you can see that it respected kind of what I have here for highlight. It doesn't bring everything over, but it does, you know. I could then here, if I wanted to say, hey, I can unhighlight, you know, that row, or maybe I don't want to unhighlight all. So I could do that over here as well, even in the file that I just saved off of the one that I just ran, that I created all those highlights and the comment on. Now you also have the option here. I could say restore original, and that would wipe out the comments and everything. Just something to be aware of. So I'd like to point that out. So let me close that one out, and I'll close that. And I'll come back to what I ran that's still offline, and it still has all the highlights and everything like that. So what other capability do I have? Well, I also have the capability, and let me just say unhighlight all. I have the capability, you notice, to say filter. It says filter cell. Now I'm on the universal remote controls under accessories. If I say filter cell, I'm going to filter and just have those 4 records display. And if I come back in any cell that I pick here, now there's a remove cell filter. If I remove cell filter, it comes back to what it is. And I had 158 records down here, and you could see that. And that was the original when I ran the request. So a thing to note with filter cell, there are other filter options that are available within Active. Filter cell is specific to this particular visualization that you're running. And it doesn't apply to any other visualizations that you have. But there's other filter options that apply to the filter or across all of your visualizations that you'll see as I move through the different capabilities and everything. But I just want to mention that because, again, it's a very cool feature. Maybe I just want to filter and I just want to see that. And then I said, you know, now I see what I have. Okay, now I want to remove that cell filter. It's as easy as that. So that's kind of just giving you a little highlight into, you know, just an introductory into some of those features. So I kind of covered, like, from a cell perspective, what's available. So what else can we do? There's a lot more, all right? And I kind of already showcased it a little bit initially. So the very first thing that I want to do is I want to showcase, hey, we have the capability of sorting. And you can see, right, the little icon there that's kind of grayed out. And you could style and change that color, actually, and everything like that. But if I hover over it, right, you can kind of see it is available. And the title actually has capabilities, too, that I'll go into. But if I just click it, You can see that now it says it's in descending order. If I click it again, it's in ascending order, right? And then I could change it for revenue in descending order. And now it's in ascending order. And in the little ellipse menu over here, you'll notice that there's a reset sort that wasn't there before. If I clear that, it clears out any of the sorting that I've done via those icons. And you'll see in a moment other sort ascending and descending capabilities on the column title options. But so right now you can see, if I look at the little ellipse, that reset sort's not there. But the moment I click and kind of clicked what I didn't want to click there to showcase it yet, but you can see here I have the sort and descending, and now you'll see I have reset sort. So I'm going to click that back and put reset sort back. And now once I click it, it's not there in the menu options anymore. So if I come back to product category and I click the title, I have the capability here. There's a lot of features that are available to you. It looks a little bit different. Some of it looks very similar to our old active technology capabilities. And you might be running those and everything, but I kind of wanted to showcase it from the latest in what we have. But a lot of the same capabilities are there. So I'm going to go through these in sections, and I'm going to start off on the left-hand side first. So here we can see we can do sort ascending and descending. So besides using the little icons, I can click the title, and I can do it here as well. So if I click sort ascending, you can kind of see the icon change, and it's showing that. And if I click the title just to hide that, now you can see it's still in ascending order. But then I could change it to descending, and now it's in descending order. Very cool. And certainly now I also have the reset sort available to me. Let me show it from a numeric perspective. Here I have ascending for revenue, and then I click it, you can kind of see that, and then descending for revenue. And you can see the impact once I click the title again, right? So I'm going to reset the sort. So you can do it through the icons, but you can also do the title here. Now, some of the other capabilities that I think are very useful is if you're dealing with an alphanumeric field, right, and even showcase it with a numeric field, there's a show column total option. Now, the options that are available to you, whether it's an alphanumeric or numeric, are slightly different. And I'll go through that. So if I click show total, column total, by default, it's a count. And you'll see it'll show here total count 158. But if I hide this and just click that, you'll see the total count 158 is actually at the top of the report. You can actually change the position of this to be at the bottom, but by default, that's where it would be unless you're overriding it from a style sheet perspective. And again, that's something we can look at during our next session. So that's cool. Now, what options do you have available? Because it's alphanumeric, you can do count or distinct. So if I select distinct, there are 7 distinct product categories, and you can see it says the total count distinct is 7. And if I click that, you can see that there is a title as well. And certainly I can hide it as this column if I wanted as well. But I'll do that. I'll showcase it when I show it on revenue. So I'm going to click revenue now. And now for revenue, I'm going to show column total. And when I do that for revenue, because it's a numeric, you have additional aggregate functions, right? Because it's the numeric versus an alphanumeric. So I could do sum, which is what you'll see at the top of it. But I could and because I enabled it already, right? Just click the title just so that you can see there, and you can see 1.061 billion as the total sum. But you can also see it here on the bottom of this section as well that I just highlighted. Right, but maybe I don't want the sum. Maybe I want average. Now you can see that it says total average, and click it. You can see here as well, right under the column title, the total average. So very easy, useful feature. Maybe I want the minimum, and then I can see that there as well. Again, as at the bottom, but I'm going to put it back to sum. That's probably typically where you have it, but you do have those additional options. There's certainly min, max, count, and also count distinct that you can change and adjust accordingly. You have an option with numerics to visualize, and that creates the data bars here. And they could be negative as well, and you can adjust the colors. And again, that's something for the next session that we can go through. But pretty kind of cool and very simple to get that kind of capability. Maybe I want to do show percent of total. And if I check that, you'll kind of see that capability there, and you'll see that percent of total column. And then as I go through the pages, you can kind of see the impact there, right? What else do you have? Now, one other thing I could do is I could decide, you know what? I want to hide this column right now. So let me check hide. Now hide, you notice revenue is now gone. Well, what if I want to bring it back? Well, of course you can bring it back. The little ellipse here, and there's a show columns option. And the show columns option says I could show all. That'll always be there if you have at least one, right? And then here's MSRP, discount, and cost of goods. Those were the ones that I hid in the request that aren't displayed right now. But then I can click revenue, and that'll bring revenue back with the options that I had already enabled because I had already had it in my report, and I had already done by adding the percent of total and the visualize, etc. So again, just talking just for a few minutes when there's already a lot of great capabilities that I showcased that are pretty easy and straightforward to manipulate. Now, what else do we have? Now, if I click here and I look at the very right-hand side, there is the ability to filter and highlight. You can go through between the two sections. So if I were to put just like a lowercase c, because you see the capital and lowercase a kind of with a slash, it means it's case insensitive. So you can see accessories, camcorder, computers, video production. But if I were to click that and make it case sensitive, computers is not, because it doesn't have a lowercase c, it had an uppercase c. And then certainly if I made this an uppercase c, then because it's case sensitive, you only get camcorder and computers. But if I click in and make it case insensitive, you see all four there. All right, so that's kind of cool. And then I could, if I wanted to, I could select all. And you'll see 7 val, which is kind of like still, because it's selecting all of them, but I could certainly do that. And you'll see you get a little filter icon with an X there. Notice it puts filter counts and filtered sum. In this case, they're both the same because I'm not really truly filtering because I selected everything. But I can come back in and say, you know what, I want to clear that. And then maybe instead of, you know, just selecting everything, of course, maybe I want to select computers and accessories. And now come back and you can see that applied. Now you can see the filter count distinct as 2 and the filtered sum is impacted as well, but you still have the totals as well for reference. Kind of a nice little thing to have. Now I could certainly click this filter and you see that filter now is gone and it's no longer applied, and you can see the impact and you don't see the filter, the filtered count and the filtered sum on revenue, right? Because I deleted the filter. Yes.
There's a, I don't know if it's more of a question or a request.
Yeah.
They're saying if you put sales year on a report and click on the column, they'd like to have the individual year values listed as a filter to check, not the range filter control. Is that doable, or?
I'm not sure I completely understand the question.
So you have a field that has years in it.
Yeah.
I guess when they click on it to filter, they get the range filter control, not the list of values. And they want the list of values.
It could be because based on the nature of the format of the field, that's the way it is. I can follow up on that.
Okay.
Because, yeah, it's the nature of the field, whether or not you get a list or a range. But if it sees a numeric, then it's going to give you a range. If it sees it as an alphanumeric, so maybe the option there is to convert it to alpha versus, you know, having it as a numeric format if you wanted it listed. That's the difference in the way to control. Yeah.
Or possibly as a YY.
I think it would still consider it as a numeric in that case.
Okay.
Yeah, because of the base format. But, you know, yeah, that's how you will control it right now. But that's actually something that's very interesting, and I could bring that up with product management. That's a great question, actually. It hasn't come up before. So great question. Okay, so now I have product category, I have revenue. So I'm going to go here on the filter and highlight side, right? So product category, you can see it kind of lists the values, right? And certainly I could click highlight and then just highlight. It won't filter them, but it'll highlight just those. Like if I selected accessories, notice that when you highlight, it gives you like a little pen with the X, and it showcases that they're highlighted right now, but they're not truly filtered. but then I can get rid of that, and then I can bring that back to where it remembers wherever you were last. So I'll put it back to filter there. Now let me come back to revenue. Now you do have the range with numeric, but you have the option that if you don't want to do the range per se and scale it, you can actually type in here the values. So if I wanted to, I could say, maybe 100,000 at the upper limit and just hit that. And notice that you see the filter icon, and let me click, and now you only have 8 records. I could delete that, come back in, and then maybe put the bottom as 100,000. And you'll see I have the filter. And now I had 8 records before. Now it's 150 because that criteria meets most of the records out of the 158. Certainly I could come back here and I could have filters, multiple filters. I could have computers and accessories filtered here. And now you can see I'm limited now to 34 records. Okay. So you can have multiple filters being applied. And like I said, I love that the fact when you have the column totals, you chose to tell the total, but it also tells you the filtered options. So you have those values available to you. Now, that's kind of the filtering side of it. I wanted to get to the really kind of cool stuff, which is really that middle section when you click the column titles, right? So I'm going to leave the 2 filters in place. And I'm going to select revenue first. And in this middle section, there's a chart, and you can click roll up or pivot. For chart, you can have a bar by default. You can make it a pie, a line, scattered. But I'm just going to let it default, and I'm going to say sum. And you can do what the aggregate options that you have available to the fields that you have available. And I'm just going to leave sum and product category for time. And you can see that it created a visualization all the way on the right-hand side. Notice that the filtering is in place because it's only giving me accessories and computers, and you can see the impact probably of revenue if you know WF Retail Lite data. And notice this visualization was very easily done, right? Boom, created it. And I can maximize this if I want. And if I maximize it, you'll see that I have kind of tabs down here that I can flip back and forth between. There is this little hamburger menu. I can exit full screen from here, save changes, or restore dashboard. Or I can do exit full screen all the way up on the right-hand side. And then I have the options here that I'll go through in a minute, but I'm going to put it back to what it was. There's also arrows here where if I have a wide report, I can kind of save space. And I can do here too, as well, to kind of condense, just to showcase that. There's a locking mechanism where I can lock this, which is very, very useful. I'm going to show that in a second, where you can lock the filtering in place so other filtering that gets applied afterwards is not applied to this visualization. I can change here the type of visualization that I'm looking at and come back to original chart. And then there's other options here that are available as well. So let me come back here and let me create another one on quantity sold. I'm going to go and I'm going to do a chart, and I'll do a pie chart this time with a sum on quantity sold with product category. And you can see 863K for those 2. And now I'm going to lock this. Now I could create another visualization, but I can also just right click here and do a duplicate. And now I have a duplicate one. But what if now I were to say, hey, you know what? I can just click the filter, but maybe, I want to remove the filters that I have in place for product category, right? Now you can see the impact of locking the visualization, right? Because this visualization is locked. It kept the filters that were in place, but this visualization, which was a duplicate of it, or I could have created another one that was exactly the same or very similar, and you can see that the filter was applied to it as it was to this one, because remember, this one only had computers and accessories as well. Because now you can really see the power and the capability that this gives you to really create quick and easy visualizations to analyze your data. And again, we're strictly in offline mode. This is all being done within the browser. Let me just showcase some of the other capabilities that are there. Roll up. I'll just do a sum revenue by product category, and you can kind of see it keeps the filtered in the total because that was part of it. And I could expand this if it was a lot of data so that you could see that way. And again, I can go even further and say, you know what, I want to do that for product with product subcategory as well. Again, on the roll up. And I can expand that just so that you can see that. And it has 21 records. And now it's based off a product subcategory with the revenue values. And let me condense that. And let me just showcase maybe pivot. And for pivot, I can sum and then group by and across, but let me change the group by to product subcategory so I can have across as product category and create that. And now let me expand it because it'll be a little easier to see rather than a small visualization, the impact. Now I certainly could change this if I want. I can make this, you know, maybe a grid style like that, like just what kind of I had similar in the prior one, but I can come back to original chart. And I could do that same functionality right here as well. Again, I can duplicate, I can edit it. So it goes into like an edit mode. I can export out on this and we'll look at that, and print also. And we'll look at that. And I could just close this if I want to as well. So I have those capabilities. So you can see that there's a lot of flexibility here. Again, the duplicate thing is great because you can start duplicating and changing maybe the different options and the chart capabilities that visualization capabilities that I should say that are there. So what else do we have? So I kind of just briefly went through that. And again, just to showcase it, if I were to like maximize this, again, I have all of the tabs down below where I can actually go through. And here I can see where my filter is still applied to that lock visualization, but I can go through it on the bottom and can see. Sometimes the numbering, depending on what you do, can be a little different, and you can change the names of them. I know that's a feature that customers have been asking for as well, but I can kind of bring it back here if I want, but I can just want to showcase the kind of capabilities. And again, if you have a wide report, you have the arrow here as well to kind of give you some, to kind of condense it, you know, collapse it, and then expand it as needed. For this example, it's not really necessary. Yes, another question?
So there's a question on what are the options in the export.
And I'm going to get to that. So just give me one moment and I'm going to review that as well. So I kind of give you a review of what is a cell level, what you can get from the titles, and you can see you have a lot of create capabilities in terms of also visualizations that you can create, and you can customize them and you can adjust them accordingly with the features. Like I said here, you can do it here or whether it's maximized or not, what options, and you can always go back to what the original was as well. But this ellipse here really does give you a lot of capabilities. And what you see here and what you might see when you run in your environment could be different depending on what options might be made available. But I have everything open at this point. So the new option, if I were to select new, it kind of gives you your ability to create charting like as if you were in Designer almost. Obviously, it's not going to be full blown because, right, you are in a browser and you're doing it via that. But here I could do something as simple as pick, you know, product category, bring that in, and then maybe for the vertical, like revenue, gross profit, you know, cost of goods or something like that. So now you can see I already have a stack chart. I could go through and change it to maybe, you know, and you can see I'm just changing through the icons over here with a template to change them from horizontal to separated bars to pie, line, area, etc. So forth. I'm not going to go through everything, but I'm going to come back to stacked. But you also have these options, which also should look familiar in Designer, where I could say, here, swap the access. Or that's stacked, or I can make them side by side, or I can make it absolute where they're within one another, or I can even do a percent. So you have those capabilities. When you hover over them, they don't give you titles, but those are the same type of capabilities that you have within Designer, and just for space, that's kind of why they did it that way. But I'm going to come back to stack. I could also, if I want to, like, you know, fill out maybe, let's say, tooltip. If I were to put maybe discount in the tooltip. I hover over, I can see the discount is there too. And if I were to do something like product subcategory also in the tooltip, it's going to, because it's in alphanumeric, it's going to add it as a count, right? And certainly if I wanted to, I could change it to account distinct. So because again, it's alphanumeric. So I could save that if I want. And now that's another visualization that's available to me. And I did that through the new menu option. Now the edit gives you the capability of looking at your main request and adjusting that accordingly. So I could do something as simple as, and coming in here as sum because I have that sum aggregate there, but I could do product category, or maybe not product category, and then maybe revenue, kind of switch them if I wanted to. Maybe I don't want product category. Maybe then I do want it. And if I can get it up above, sometimes it's a little, but you get the idea of the kind of capability that you can have here. I can remove that. And what if I wanted subtotals, just as an example? If you were to click the little ellipse and you enable subtotals, you'll see the line like there, because I have sum on revenue and it came across that way. But if you don't see it, what you'll see is, like, if I were to take this and say none on the aggregate. Now notice you have the subtotal, but nothing's being subtotal, because even though that might be sum within the request itself, you have to kind of say what type of aggregate you want in order to actually see the subtotal value, even though you enabled subtotals here. So I would have to, let me do it on something different, like gross profit. And I'll say sum there. Or maybe instead of that, maybe I wanted not the sum, but maybe I wanted the aggregate, the average. And you'll see the difference that way. So I just kind of wanted to showcase, and then you'll see it also here on the top, the total average as well. Again, positioning depends on where you have it, but it would default to the top. And then if I wanted to, there's a little plus here where I could save it to my original request, or I can exit out and say, okay, I did that kind of manipulation, but I don't want to save it. So I'm going to just exit out. And I leave it that way. So that's kind of the edit capability. Show columns, again, kind of already showcased that. You can show all, and that will show all the hidden fields. Or I can do them in just one by one. So here I could do MSRP if I wanted to. And you'll see in the title kind of like looks a little bit lighter. It's not as dark as the original. Or I could showcase all of them. Or I could come back and I can actually, I can come back and I can do hide the column again, right? So I can click the column title, click the hide column, and I can hide them. And then now getting to the question, almost to export, but show records is how many records do you want for a page? By the page default, you saw I have 57, but maybe I want 20, right? So I have 3 pages right now. But if I say 20, now I have one of 8 pages, and you can go through each 2, 3, all the way to the end if I wanted to, and you can see the impact of doing that. So now, but I can change it to whatever I want. If I say show all, now you can't control the options here. We are looking to see if we could enhance that, where you can make maybe only certain options available for records per page for the user if you want to enable this feature. But show all says give me as a single page. So you know you don't have the notice you don't have the page options anymore. It's page 1 of 1. And it's all of the records based on the filters, obviously, that I have. Or I can come back and I could say come back to the default. Now, export is a big one. I know that. So I'm going to click export. Now, you can actually impact whether it's filtered only or not. So you can check or uncheck that. Now, because this is offline, you do have Excel, CSV, which is common delimited HTML, and you can check each one of them to create all of them at the same time. That Excel option is an older Excel format. It's not the true XLSX format. If you use cached capabilities, meaning you have enabled caching where it's truly still connected to the server and it's info cache, then that Excel will be a true XLSX format, and you also have an option of PDF as well. And I'll just do a quick thing just to showcase this. And if I run that, you'll see I have the different outputs there. And if I come in and go to downloads, you'll see what I have capable. That was the save I did before. Here, you can see the Microsoft options and the common delimited one. Let me just open the Microsoft one. That's the Excel option. And you can say, do you want to open it anyway? Yes. And you can kind of see the output here. And I can showcase it all. So what it would be for the common delimited one, CSV. Don't convert, just exit out. You can see the output there. And then also, this is the HTML output. You can kind of see the output that you have there as well in terms of what was exported. One thing I will note is if I were to show hidden fields in this report, the HTML will show those columns, but the Excel output, the common delimit, will not. It's something just to be aware of. Also, print option. It's truly just if you click print, and that's the same thing for the individualization. You can select filtered or not. And then if you say print, it brings up the print capability. I'm just going to cancel out here, but you can actually print to whatever appropriate destination. And again, you have that capability here as well, along with export, and new and edit is available as well. And then save changes, and then I could just say restored original. Now, if you say restore original, it brings it back to where we were before, to the original request when it ran, and it clears out everything. And so if I say that, now you can see that. And there's no undo. I know there was kind of like a little tweak there, but I kind of wanted to showcase that. I know we're running short on time, and there might be some more questions. Again, this was to give you an idea of the capabilities and what's available when you actually generate active report, and just to see what the features are. I hope I gave a very good introduction into that. And then next month's session will be a follow-up to this to kind of showcase, well, maybe I don't want to make all those features available to users. How can I control that? What are the different options? And then some styling capabilities, and actually some other things, maybe from a security perspective. Maybe you're thinking about password protection. Well, we do have that capability as well. But that's for today's presentation. That kind of covers what I wanted to go over as an introduction. So any questions?
Yeah, so there's one. Can you change the position of the up-down sort arrow? Put it directly next to the end of the title name.
I'm not aware. I know you can style it and change it, but I'm not aware of actually changing it position so that it's so close to it. You can follow up with me, and I can see if that can be done from a styling perspective, but I'm not aware of that capability now.
And then there was another comment about, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, but you can style it. You can adjust the color and everything like that. Yeah.
Okay. There was another comment on the filtering, and instead of having like a range or the values, give the option of selecting which one you want to see, because they're doing a report on names and they want to see like last names within a certain range as opposed to the individual values. So I told them I suggested opening up a case.
Absolutely, that's a great question. I don't believe there's any feature request of that nature that's been reported. So definitely open up a case, and I'll mention to product management as well. It's a good question.
I think
okay.
That's it.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And I'll hand it back to you, Walter. Thank you.
Okay, let me share again. Okay, so we're going to jump into the mainframe part of the session. So those of you that aren't working on a mainframe or just don't care, you're free to drop off. Please remember when you drop off to fill out the evaluation. We do look at them, we read them. All right, I guess that's it. If you're part of my mainframe group, I will be at the Golden Summit in New York on October 14th. So if you could, I would like for you to, if you want to hear something that you don't see in the agenda. So if there's a topic you want to know about and have more information about, I've had an issue, let me find where my link is, and I'll put it back in the chat. Copy link address. And then in the chat. You can click on this link and it will take you to a form you can fill out, and so you can describe what you'd like to hear about. Okay. So my part for the mainframe is I'm going to do a brief overview of SDSF, which is a job monitoring tool that's provided by IBM. So what is SDSF? SDSF stands for System Display and Search Facility. It's provided by IBM. And basically, we use it to monitor your jobs. You submitted a job. Is it still running? Did it finish? What happened in the job? You can view the JESLOG. You might have an issue when you open a case, and we ask you to send a copy of the JESLOG. This is where you can go to get that. Now, are you using it at your site? Maybe, maybe not. There are other tools that could be used. So since SDSF is available on all mainframe platforms. That's why I'm talking about it specifically. You can view active users and system logs, manage job queues, monitor system performance, which is probably above and beyond our everyday usage. Issuing system commands, we're going to see an example of that, and then browsing and printing job output. And for our purposes, we're only really going to look at the browsing. So this I did as a cheat sheet. So SDSF primary commands, these go at the top of your SDSF window. And I'm going to show that, and let's see there. So this is an example of the main SDSF window. So ST shows all jobs, DA only shows active jobs, H shows jobs and held output. Prefix and a filter or owner and a filter lets you go in and see what output jobs you're going to see, because you don't want to see everybody's. You don't really probably only want to see your own. Log will show you the system log information, which is probably something you would never use. And then ulog will show your user log, which you may or may not use. All of these accesses are dependent on your permissions and what you have authority to do. So you may not be able to do only maybe the ST and the DA and the prefix and owner, but maybe not some of the other ones like the logs. So hence my available options are based on permissions. So that these are the primary commands. These go up here at the top where it says command input. So if I do ST, these are all the current jobs. In my case, I have a TSU job, which is my TSO session, and it shows that it's being executed. All these other jobs have already finished, but they're still in the job queue. If I do DA, I see only the actively running jobs. So in this case, I have just my TSO session. I don't have any other batch jobs running right now. If I take off the owner, now I see a whole bunch of running jobs of everything else that's running on the system. Like these DBBs are DB and DBC are our DB2 SSID regions. You can do filtering. So if I only want to see all the QCS IDs, I can do QCS asterisk. Okay, so let me go back to mine. Owner, QCS. And I'm going to go back to ST. If I do log, I can see the system log. Again, there's a lot of information here that you probably aren't going to understand. But we also have a ulog, which is the user log. So right now it just says the console was activated. That's about the only messages that I see. Where this really comes in handy is on the next one where I do /D. D is for display. And I want to display the M equals CPU because I want to see the CPU information for this system. So notice I get a response. And at the top right-hand corner, it says 12 responses not shown. And if I hit enter, it goes back to the command window. So how do I see those 12 responses that weren't shown? And that's where the ulog comes in. Because now everything that you did on that command is now in the user log. Okay. The /P job name will, I say nicely, stop a job. You have hard stops and you have soft stops. If you're running Focus Studio or you're running a PDS server, you should not go in and put a C in front of the job name and cancel the job, because that will just cancel the job immediately. Boom, it's done. When you do the /P, and let me go into ST, and I'll do owner. What did I do wrong? Owner QCS keys. There we go. So notice I have a Focus Studio session running. I could put a C here and force stop it, but I don't want to do that. So better would be to do a /P and the job name. And then what it does is it sends a request to stop the workspace manager for Focus Studio or WebFOCUS or the WebFOCUS PDF server. And then it will nicely bring down the session. So if you have files that are being updated, you're not going to abruptly shut down the server before all the updates get done. So it's the safer way of ending the sessions. Okay, again, these are all at the command line. Then we have the line commands. So for the line commands, we have, I don't want to do it here. So if I do an S for select, I see the JESLOG. So this is the full JESLOG, all the system messages. And if there's a problem, we may ask you for this. If I do SE, it shows me the same information, but now it puts me in an editor. So why is this important? Because now I can come here and I can say C9999 and create, and then it will copy that information into another data set. BUG jes.data. Let's specify the attributes. It should automatically default, and it did. So it's an FBA 138, so I can keep that. So now if I come and look for that data set, I have a JESLOG in a single sequential file that now you can FTP or transfer to send to via the case. Okay, let me get back over here. So if I look at the JESLOG, so let's do the question mark. The question mark will show me the individual components, all the DDs of the JESLOG. So you have your JES message log, your JES JCL, and then your JES system messages, along with any DDs that are referenced in your job. So if I look at the JES JCL, this is what I see. I see my job card, I see we're running Focus, I see we have a sysin that's allocated to DD asterisk, which means that we're running in stream. But what if I want to see what was submitted in that sysin? Is there a way to do that? Well, I wouldn't have brought it up if there wasn't. So let's come back over here. Oops, let's come back over here. Instead of doing an S or an SE, now I'm going to do an SJ. So J is select and show me the JCL. So now this shows me the true JCL that was submitted for this job, which includes any sysins, any in-stream additions, which comes in handy. So P is purged, so I can come here, I could put a P in front of the job name, and we'll purge it from the queue. Now it's gone. And then if you have an active job, you can do C, but C would be fine if it's just running a straight job, but if you're running something like a server, it's always better to do the /P command on the command input line. All right, so what can we do with this? If I look at the F4, I'm going to do an S, select the job. It says the focus step ran okay. It has a condition code of 000. If you had multiple steps, you would have an entry for each step that you ran with its condition code. And in this case, I am going to see if I have any errors. Well, if you have an error in your focus code, because even though you might have a focus code error, your focus step, as far as JCL is concerned, will return a condition code 0, unless you have error out turned on. Then you'll get a condition code 8. So the focus step will still run, but you still might have some sort of focus error in the middle. So normally what I do is I do a find and look for FOC with the open paren FOC, because that's where all of our error messages error messages start with. And notice I do have an error here. The field name is not recognized because I had table file car print country model MDEL. What am I doing here? Oh. All right, so that's the basics. That's a basic overview of SDSF. Again, typically I use mostly ST. Sometimes I'll use DA. I'll use DA sometimes because things are running slowly and I want to know, is it because I did something wrong in my code maybe, or is it because the system is sluggish? So this tells you the CPU time that is being invoked at that point in time. So it's 12, and this is a percentage, so this is actually kind of low usage right now, which is pretty good. Let's go back to ST. There's a whole lot more. If I do a question mark on the command line, I get a whole bunch of other columns. Some of these of note are what was the date and time that this was submitted, and then the date time that the job started, and then we have the end time if it finished. All right, that's all I really wanted to cover. Are there any questions? Nope, I still got crickets. All right, let me stop sharing. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming. Renee, thanks for all of that wonderful stuff in Designer.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
All right. Hopefully we'll see you next month. So actually, let me get you the date because we kind of pushed it up a little, or pushed it back. I'm not sure, right? Okay.
The 22nd, Walter.
Okay, thanks, Shay.
Yes. So, yeah, guys, the August Focus Friday will be Friday, August 22nd. You will see that invite coming to you guys soon.
Thank you. All right, if there's nothing else, thank you all for coming, and we'll see you next time.